Hello everyone and welcome to the 5th episode. It is now the New Year's Eve and today we'll have another tour of the house, see how things are coming along right now on both floors, and take a look at the building as a whole from the outside once again. We'll also discuss some professional literature, talk about how user experience is formed, and propose some ideas about what has an influence on how a person defines the notion of home. So now that the summary is done, let's get into it. As you can see, the house is now beginning to look a lot more lived in with all of these decorative elements. For example, we have new textiles, the windows now feature curtains and blinds, and we also have wooden elements as well. Some of these are still being finished and mounted. Here on the upper floor we have left the electrical cabling open for now. This was done so that it would be easier to access it and double-check everything. These cables run along the top of the wall where it meets the ceiling, but these works have been put on pause, and we're finishing all the little bits and pieces at a more casual and relaxed pace now, because we want to be able to start using the building in full. Here you can see some of our other decorative solutions, such as these photographs, for instance. We have selected some that we liked, prepared and printed them, made passepartouts and frames, and then put them in these spaces where we thought they'd look best. It's easy to see that once decorations start appearing within a space, all of these different surfaces also start interacting much more actively. Gloss surfaces interact with matte surfaces, old surfaces interact with the new ones, and they all create a dialogue between different times and spaces. In my opinion, everything opens up and shines in much more interesting colors when these juxtapositions are present. Right now there is a baby in the house, and consequently we have a lot of unplanned equipment here as well, like changing tables and other things, many of which, by the way, fit quite nicely into the rather compact utility bathroom on the lower floor, as well as into some other rooms throughout the house. But it's still easy to use everything that was there originally, even the bathtubs that we have. Speaking of the utility bathroom on the semi-basement level, we were even able to comfortably place a rather large baby bath in the shower area there, and other things, as I mentioned, are placed in other rooms as well. So we can conclude that it's important to always have some space left in the house, so that when your life changes, you can adjust the surroundings accordingly. Another example is that now that it's the New Year's Eve, there should be a place for a Christmas tree, a space for the guests to settle down and have an opportunity to play some board games or a console. It's especially nice that we can take a look at the interiors through video footage, because even during a photo session it's not always possible to do justice to some particular angles or even whole rooms. At least so far, when we've had a photographer working here, we weren't able to capture some things simply because there weren't any decent angles to do so. We have also mounted some souvenirs and keepsakes from our travels. There are some etchings I've brought back from Japan, written parting wishes from the Dutch chief government architect Floris Alquemada, and a Japanese symbol for art, which I wrote under the guidance of a calligraphy master in Japan. We still have to install the attic ladder, as well as some other wooden decorative elements, and while this is being prepared, we've also done another thermal imaging survey of the whole building. And we were able to spot some low temperatures and find several heat leaks, which either appeared during construction or weren't fixed in the first place. We also have some pieces of art in the house now. For example, here, in the children's bathroom, there is an artwork by Roma Bantic. It goes quite well together with the fittings and some other equipment, which is also matte black in color. I find that this artwork visually ties everything together very well. And the colorful curtains in the bathroom, in turn, help balance out these black and white elements. Here we have once again caulked all places where there were possible gaps in the walls which were leading to heat leakages. These were rather large and covered whole areas. So this entrance space, this hall or foyer, I don't really know how to best describe it, this is the place that had the leakages, and we have successfully fixed them. Let's now also take a look at the semi-basement level. We are now getting ready and prepared for the holidays, and we are currently waiting for some guests to arrive. So the space is now in a fully operational mode. It's under the most stress it has experienced so far. I think it's also quite interesting to see the contrast between the precise and deliberate photos that we've had taken of the space, with interior stylists carefully preparing the space for the shoot, and the real raw footage with no adjustments. This way we can see how it all looks and operates in reality. The evening is drawing close, and we can see how everything looks here. We now have all the textiles in place, and the lighting as well. Everything works and looks exactly as intended, and all zones here are now being fully utilized. Here's the dining area, and it's important to note that the tables here can be rearranged. When needed, they can be placed in a straight line, or a square, when they are parallel to each other, or in a T-shape like right now, which happens most often when we're having meetings here, and this space is enough to allow for all these transformations. Here we also have this large sofa with passages on both sides of it. The sofa is part of this large area with this projector screen, which can be used to have some background video running, or it can be used for other activities as well. For example, you can use the screen to play some games on the console. We have also mounted these hooks on both floors, which allow us to hang a carry cot like this. It has a spring, and when we're spending time here at the table, we're able to put the baby in the carry cot and rock it gently while doing something else at the same time. Here is the street view. We can see this area between the street itself and the summer entrance to the yard, which is by the gates. Since last time, we have installed additional lights on the second building on the left, as well as some decorative lights and light sensors on the main building itself. And today is quite a nice day to see how it all looks in winter time. I think that in summer we'll record some additional footage to show you the landscaping which will have been done by then, all the greenery and lawns, and how the building is going to look with all of that in place. Last time I did talk briefly about horticultural associations and collective gardens, and not long ago I was having a conversation with a journalist during which we discussed the overall state of affairs and the overall sentiment with regards to heritage, especially the public opinion on the matter. During this conversation, we've touched on the other discussions this person has had with various authors and online bloggers. One of these bloggers was Fedor Saventsov. Here I have his book, which was published by Tatlin. I, of course, very much wanted to get my hands on it straight away once I'd seen it, and my wife kindly gave it to me as a gift. This book has very concise and well-formulated notes inside. It conveys the atmosphere very well through fascinating photographs and through short stories recorded by the author. The texts themselves are not overwhelming, and they communicate the tonalities and the overall topic of these summer cottages in Kratova very well. This is also a topic which I didn't really know much about, especially before I read this book. And this topic is Fedor's specialty. He explores it here very well, not to mention that he is very much concerned with preserving such vernaculars, which can be found in these summer cottage territories. In general, I think that there are definitely people whose experience of living in a summer cottage during their childhood helped shape their user experience with regards to buildings and houses as a whole. We have conducted surveys ourselves, surveys about the cultural capital, about how this manifests in designing projects, and the childhood experience, of course, plays a role in this. Among other things, this includes childhood memories about the time spent with one's family and grandparents. For some people, these might be some of the most dear memories about living in such summer cottages or collective gardens, which were often established based on the fact that the people living there were given these plots of land because they were all working in the same factory, for example. That is to say that these groups of people were united not through the ideas of communism or building a bright future, but instead by the fact that they were engaged in one working process, they were part of a single production line. This means that there was also an element of what we'd now call corporate culture, which also helped unite these people. I think that such memories have a great impact on what kind of a demand we have, and how we imagine comfort, what constitutes this comfort to us. All of these things are impacted by the experiences we've had throughout our lives since childhood. So, for instance, someone might have been formed as a person during summer holidays or weekends at the grandparents'. Someone else might have had their beliefs form whilst reading some foreign novels where particular spaces, buildings and their atmosphere were described in great detail, and this person was very responsive to this and absorbed much of it in the process. Another person might have been into watching films, and in these films set decorators and production designers did some outstanding work. Even today, we have many series which recreate historic interiors and clothing in great detail and then accurately reproduce them in frame. Someone else might frequent good hotels, for instance, when traveling abroad, and this person then adopts some experience there. For example, we now have some clients we work with, and we discuss their experience of visiting particular places in detail. And our understanding is that this experience greatly influences their vision of what their future place is going to look like, or how they would like it to look, or what their demand is, essentially. I'd also like to talk about the literature I personally use when designing, and in my working process in general. I think that a great indicator is that specific moment when you feel the urge to buy some particular books when working on a project. These can be albums, or they can be other books as well. For instance, I found this in my library recently, a wonderful book published in 1952 called Wooden Structures. It's a fascinating book and it tackles many topics. We do have a lot of wooden structures in our house, and it's an easy conclusion to make that we are able to use all this knowledge in our current projects. I think that there is a great deal of interesting information in publications like this one, but if you'd like something more relevant, there is a lot of useful and important information out there. You can take a look at foreign authors, for example. I have an extensive list of literature I'd like to own on Amazon, and I've established my workflow in such a way that when I have some interest in a subject, I buy or order some books which satisfy this specific interest. It's because I already have many books, and I'd like to actually use them, as opposed to simply collecting them. If you are interested in the subjects of restoring heritage or working with old buildings in general, I suggest you have a look on the internet. There's a lot of good English literature on these. I'd recommend you order the books that you are interested in, have a search and a browse. There are some amazing huge volumes out there, and if you have any questions, I'm sure I can help and give you some advice. It's very interesting to observe how people treated their homes previously. We understand that the plaid-bands, the carved decor, all of these told a story and could help identify some cultural codes, maybe a territorial identity, or maybe a family's history. And in general, in the past, people treated their houses as animated entities even. And because of this, we have this major role that the house played in people's everyday lives, their day-to-day rituals or some special occasions. It was just today that we've discussed an order for personalized textiles. We'd like to design and have some decorative elements made for the dining table, such as napkins and a tablecloth. Maybe then we'll have some cushions, some upholstery for the furniture, and some curtains, all with a personalized pattern. In the past, such an approach was commonplace. It wasn't only for the wealthy who could afford to have unique design projects made for themselves and their family by hiring a professional decorator in some studio. Such practice existed in every household. People made embroidery, weaving, and knitting themselves. And there were a lot of such handmade items in every house, and fashion, of course, provided an outlet for these skills and abilities, as well as helped inscribe the history of the house into these items. We capture and store our memories in our private spaces through placing some personal items or other possessions which preserve, confirm, or transmit this history. It's because these elements are present in a space that we consider it as one that belongs to us. So, even though the renovation process comes to a close, this episode won't be the last. I hope we can continue discussing these topics and sharing the information that we found to be useful to our project and which can prove useful to some of our future or current projects as well. If you have any questions at all, I'd be happy to answer them. You can send me a message or leave a comment, whichever you prefer. And thank you very much for your interest and support. I hope to see you soon. Take care.